The day you bury a parent may also be the day you bury a sibling. I know that sentence stings. Some part of you wants to push it away. Another part of you, the honest part, already knows it might be true. Last fall, I spoke with a woman in Tampa, 69 years old, recently widowed. She told me she hadn't heard from her younger brother in 14 months. Not since they cleared out their father's house. She wasn't crying when she said it. She just looked tired. And then she said something I've been thinking about ever since. She said, when the parents are gone, everyone goes back to being who they really were. I'm just finally seeing it. And maybe you felt this too. The brother who used to call on every birthday doesn't anymore. The sister you grew up sharing a bedroom with now feels like someone you used to know. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought has been forming, a thought that almost feels wrong to say out loud. The thought that a sibling, in the end, might just be a stranger who happens to share the same parents. I'm not going to tell you that blood is thicker than water. That sentence was invented by people who were never hurt by their own family. And I'm not going to tell you to try harder, or to be the bigger person, or to forgive them this weekend. Instead, I'm going to walk you through 5 real reasons why siblings become complete strangers after parents die. 5 reasons most people feel, but never name out loud. And by the end of this video, you'll understand something that may have been quietly breaking your heart for years. You are not cold, you are not broken, you are not a bad brother or a bad sister. You are simply someone who gave too much for too long for a peace nobody else was paying for. Let's begin. Reason number 1. And almost nobody talks about this one because it sounds too small to matter. The umbrella is gone. For your entire life, your parents weren't just your parents. They were the structure, the reason everyone showed up, the voice that said, don't fight your brothers. And somehow, that one sentence was enough to end a 10-year grudge. When your mother was alive, your brother called on her birthday. When your father was alive, your sister came home for Thanksgiving. You thought that was love between siblings. It wasn't. It was love for the umbrella. And the day that umbrella closed, the day of the funeral, the rain didn't stop. The rain just started landing on you directly for the first time in your life. Let me tell you about a woman I spoke with last winter. I'll call her Linda, 64 years old, Asheville, North Carolina, one older brother, Tom, who lives in Denver. For 30 years, Linda and Tom had a Sunday morning phone call. Every Sunday, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. It didn't matter what they talked about, the weather, their kids, an old song one of them remembered. The call was the point. Their mother passed in early March. By the second Sunday in April, the phone didn't ring. By the third Sunday in May, Linda realized Tom wasn't going to call. Not that Sunday, not the next one, not again. Nothing had happened between them. There was no fight. There was just no more reason. Linda told me, I didn't lose my mother in March. I lost my brother by May, and nobody warned me the second loss was coming. Here's what's actually happening underneath this. When your parents are alive, you and your siblings share one role, children, and the role of child is flat. It doesn't matter who earns more, who lives where, who married whom. In front of your parents, you are all just sons and daughters. But the moment your parents die, that role rewrites itself. You are no longer a child. You are now the head of your own household. Your sibling is the head of theirs. And suddenly, 2 people who shared one role for 60 years now represent 2 completely separate families, 2 separate budgets, 2 separate loyalties, 2 separate ledgers. This is why someone who called every Sunday for 30 years can stop calling within 6 months of a funeral. It's not that they stopped loving you. It's that the role that required them to call you, that role no longer exists. The umbrella that organized everyone's behavior, it's gone. And without it, the calls don't come. The visits don't happen. The closeness simply runs out of fuel, quietly. the way a car runs out of gas on a long highway when no one was watching the needle. So before we go to reason number 2, I want you to hear this clearly. This isn't abandonment, it's accuracy. The relationship you had with your siblings while your parents were alive, that was real for that season. The relationship you have with them now, that's real for this season. Both are true. You are not losing your family. You are seeing it without the umbrella. And what you see now is what was always there. Reason number 2. And this one explains why the first conversation after the funeral so often becomes the last real conversation you ever have. The ledger opens. You didn't know you were keeping a ledger. You thought you were just being a good son, a good daughter, the one who answered the phone at 2 in the morning, the one who drove over on a Tuesday because mom couldn't find her glasses, the one who quietly paid the difference when the pharmacy bill came in higher than expected. You weren't keeping score, but somewhere inside you, a page was being written. Every visit, every missed visit, every excuse, every silence. And the day your parent died, somebody opened that page, and they didn't agree with a single line on it. A woman I'll call Diane, 66 years old, just outside Houston, was the daughter who stayed. Her older brother moved to Seattle in his 30s and built a life there. Their mother developed early dementia at 76. For the next 9 years, Diane was the one. She knew which neighbors to call when her mother wandered. She knew which pharmacy had the right discount on the memory medication. She knew her mother's bathroom routine better than her own. Her brother called every few weeks, polite, kind, brief. How's she doing? Tell her I love her. When their mother passed, Diane wasn't expecting praise. She just expected her brother to know, to understand, without her having to say it. He didn't. 3 weeks after the funeral, he sent her a single text. Hey, can we set up a call about the estate? Let's make sure everything is split fairly. Fairly. Diane read that word 4 times. Then she put the phone down and didn't pick it up again for 2 days. Here's the trap of the ledger. You think the ledger is about fairness. It's not. The ledger is about being seen. Every entry on your page, every drive, every phone call, every Tuesday afternoon you spent in a waiting room wasn't really about the task. It was about being witnessed. About someone someday looking at you and saying, I know what you did. I know what it cost you. Thank you. But your sibling never opened your page. They were too busy writing their own. Because here's what nobody tells you about memory. Humans don't store memory as fact. We store it as feeling. So when your sibling looks back at the last 10 years, they don't see what you saw. They see their own version. And in their version, they were the good one too. They remember the Christmases they showed up. You remember the Christmases they didn't. Both memories are real. Both pages are full. And neither of you will ever agree on the total. And this is where a thought starts whispering inside you. A thought you don't want to admit. A thought that feels almost shameful. Maybe I shouldn't have given so much. Stop. Listen to me carefully. That thought is not bitterness. That thought is the beginning of clarity. You're not becoming cold. You're finally noticing that you've been carrying something alone for a very long time, and the person you were carrying it for never even knew you were carrying it. And here's the harder truth, the one that took me years to say out loud. What you call understanding may be slow self-betrayal. Every time you said, they're just busy, you were betraying yourself a little. Every time you said, they didn't mean it that way, you were betraying yourself a little. Every time you said, family is family, I'll just take care of it, you were betraying yourself a little more. Understanding, when only one person is doing it, isn't kindness. It's a slow erasure. You are not cold. You are not broken. You just stop being willing to erase yourself for people who never once asked you, are you okay? Reason number 3. And this is the reason most families will not survive. Money tells the truth. Listen carefully. This is how it always starts. First, the values become a little different. Then the conversations get a little awkward. Then the visits get a little shorter. Then the distance gets a little wider. And then money walks in. And money never walks in alone. Money brings every silent grievance, every unspoken comparison, every old wound with it. Money doesn't cause siblings to become strangers. Money just turns the lights on in a room that was already empty. There's an old observation, passed down for generations, that says it best: wealth was only ever borrowed, but the moment we try to hold on to it, the truest face of a person appears. You think you know your sibling? You've known them for 60 years? You've seen them at weddings, at hospitals, at every Thanksgiving since you can remember. But you have never seen the face that appears when there is a check on the table and a name on a document. And once you've seen that face, you can't unsee it. A retired contractor I'll call Earl, 72, just outside Cleveland, told me his story over coffee last December. 3 siblings, modest family. Their mother passed and left a small house, a savings account that wasn't large, and one piece of furniture that mattered, a hand-built oak dresser their father made the year Earl was born. Earl assumed the house and the savings would be the issue. They weren't. The siblings handled those in 20 minutes. The dresser took 8 months. 8 months of phone calls. 8 months of lawyers. 8 months of his younger brother saying, "Dad would have wanted me to have it." And his older sister saying, "You weren't even there when he built it." Earl told me, "I would have given them the house. I would have given them the savings. I'd have given them everything. What I couldn't give them was the part of me that finally saw who they really were." Why does money do this? Because money is the first object in adult life that forces siblings to measure each other, out loud, in writing, with a notary in the room. For 60 years, you got to imagine your sibling however you wanted. They were the version of them you remembered from childhood. The one who shared a bed with you during thunderstorms. The one who pulled you out of the pool when you were 6. But money doesn't care about memory. Money asks one question: who gets what? And to answer that question, every person at the table has to declare, for the first time, what they think they're worth and what they think the others are worth. And here's the part that breaks people. The math is never the real fight. The real fight is decades of, "I did more." The real fight is, "You were always the favorite." The real fight is, "You weren't there when it mattered." The real fight is, "I gave up my 40s for them and you gave up nothing." Money is just the language the family finally has permission to speak in, because nobody can say, "I felt invisible my whole life," but they can absolutely say, "I think the savings should be split differently." Same sentence, different costume. And I want to say something here that I know will make some of you uncomfortable. Some of you watching this are bracing yourselves for an inheritance conversation that hasn't happened yet. Maybe your parent is still alive. Maybe they're in a nursing home. Maybe you've already started to feel the temperature change between you and your siblings. Don't blame yourself for that temperature change. Your parents wanted you to be happy. They did not want you to be the peacekeeper for people who never paid for peace. The greatest insult to a parent's memory is not a divided estate. The greatest insult is a child who erased herself trying to hold a family together that was already holding itself apart. So if money is already on the table in your family, or if it's coming soon, don't be afraid of it. Money will tell you the truth. And the truth, even when it costs you a sibling, is cheaper than another 20 years of pretending. Pretending has a price. And in my experience, that price is always paid by the person who was kind enough to pretend the longest. That doesn't have to be you anymore. Reason number 4. And this is the reason most siblings drift apart long before any money is ever on the table. Same blood, different lives. For the first 18 years of your life, you and your sibling lived inside the same world. Same kitchen, same school district, same dinner table on Sunday, same set of problems, same set of jokes. Then life happened. One of you moved, one of you stayed, one of you went to college, one of you didn't, one of you married someone who values quiet weekends, one of you married someone who values loud holidays, one of you spent 40 years building a career, one of you spent 40 years building a family, and one day you sat across from each other at a table, same blood, same childhood, same parents. And you realized you don't actually speak the same language anymore. Not because anyone failed, because life is long and life is wide, and 40 years apart will turn any two people into translators of each other. There's a quiet observation I keep hearing from people in their 60s and 70s. They say it almost like a confession. My sibling and I, we'd only stay close if we lived similar lives. We don't, so we don't. That sentence sounds harsh. It isn't. It's just honest. Friendship, even between siblings, runs on shared rhythm, shared problems, shared references. When two people don't have those anymore, the friendship doesn't end with a fight. It ends with a slow, gentle silence that nobody planned and nobody can quite explain. A woman I'll call Helen, 67, retired nurse from Portland, Oregon, described it to me like this. Her younger sister married a successful surgeon and lives in Austin. Big house, travels 6 times a year, grandchildren in private schools on the East Coast. Helen visited her sister last spring for 4 days. The house was beautiful. The wine was expensive. The conversation, Helen told me, lasted 96 hours, and she couldn't remember a single sentence of it afterward. Not because her sister was unkind, her sister was lovely. It was just that everything her sister talked about, renovations, vacations, the grandchildren's tuition, was a country Helen had never visited. And everything Helen talked about, her late husband, her small garden, her part-time work at the hospital, was a country her sister had forgotten existed. Helen said, "We didn't fight. We just stopped finding each other in the conversation." And this is where most people make a mistake that costs them another 10 years of grief. They try to fix the difference. They share articles. They recommend books. They invite their sibling to events. They fly across the country to force closeness back into existence. And none of it works, because the distance isn't a misunderstanding. The distance is the actual shape of 2 full lives that no longer overlap. You can't fix that with effort. You can only honor it with honesty. There's a story I think about often, about a Korean scholar exiled to the south of his country for 18 years, and his 2 older brothers. One brother was exiled to a remote island and spent his life studying fish and the ocean. Another brother was executed for his faith. And the scholar himself, alone in the South, wrote books that would shape a nation. Same parents, same childhood, same family table. 3 completely different lives, 3 completely different deaths. And here is what's beautiful, not tragic, about it. Same blood is not same life, and it was never supposed to be. If those 3 brothers had been forced to live the same life, the world would have lost 3 different lights. Their distance wasn't a failure of family. Their distance was the fulfillment of 3 separate human beings. Maybe your distance from your sibling isn't a failure either. Maybe it's just the shape of you, finally being your own size. Reason number 5, and this is the most painful one, because nobody around you will ever name it for you: the silent agreement. Every family has a silent agreement, a set of rules nobody wrote down, nobody voted on, nobody questioned. The agreement was just there, like the wallpaper in the hallway. You absorbed it before you knew what it was. The agreement said one of you would be the responsible one of you would be the difficult one of you would be the favorite, one of you would be the invisible one of you would be the peacemaker, and one of you would be the one nobody worried about, because you never gave anyone a reason to. And the moment your parents died, that agreement should have ended. The contract should have been torn up. You should have been free. But here's what happens instead. Your siblings keep enforcing the old contract because they signed it too, and they need it to still be true. So they keep calling you the responsible one. They keep expecting you to organize the holidays. They keep assuming you'll handle the difficult phone call. They keep treating you the way the family decided to treat you in 1963. And every time you try to renegotiate, every time you say no, every time you say not this year, every time you say I can't carry this alone anymore, they get angry. Not because you said no, because you broke the agreement. And this is where guilt is engineered. Somebody will call you selfish. Somebody will say, Mom would be heartbroken. Somebody will say, we're family. How can you do this? That guilt isn't morality. That guilt is the contract reasserting itself. Old systems don't die quietly. They send guilt to come collect. I keep hearing the same thing from people in their 60s and 70s who finally walked away from this contract. They tell me it always sounded the same. When siblings don't really get along, but the parents kept forcing closeness, eventually everyone is exhausted and nobody is honest. That's what the silent agreement does. It produces decades of exhausted, dishonest closeness. And the day you stop producing it, the family will tell you that you are the one who broke something. You didn't break anything. You stopped pretending that something fake was real. That's not destruction. That's a kind of mercy. First for yourself, eventually for them too. And one more thing about the silent agreement. Because I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but maybe I should try one more time. Maybe if I just had one honest conversation with my brother, things could go back. I want to say this gently. You cannot restore a structure that was never built on what you thought it was. You can only build a new structure with whoever shows up honestly. Sometimes that's a sibling, often it isn't. And that's not the end of family. That's just the beginning of an honest one. So those are the 5 reasons. The umbrella that closed, the ledger that opened, the money that told the truth, the lives that diverged, the contract that nobody let you leave. None of them are your fault. None of them are a failure of love. They are the ordinary, unspoken physics of becoming an adult after the people who held the family together are gone. You did not cause this. You are not finishing it. You are only finally seeing it. So now you have a choice. And I want you to feel the weight of this choice, because nobody else in your life is going to put it this clearly. You will spend the rest of your life protecting a name, or you will spend the rest of your life protecting your peace. You cannot do both. Protecting the name means showing up to every event, answering every call, smoothing over every comment, being the bigger person at every dinner, paying emotionally, financially, physically, for a closeness nobody else is paying for. Protecting your peace means choosing the people who choose you back, lowering the volume on the people who don't, holding the door open in case anyone honest ever walks through it, and not standing in the doorway waiting. And I'm not going to tell you what to choose. That's not my place. But I will tell you what most people in their 70s have told me when they look back on this exact decision. They say, I waited too long. I was kind to people who weren't kind back. And when I finally chose myself, I was surprised to find out nobody actually needed me to keep paying. They just got used to me paying. You are allowed to stop paying. You are allowed to stop being the one who holds it all together. You are allowed to be tired. There's a sentence I'd like you to try. Not as advice, as an experiment. Tonight, before you go to sleep, say this quietly to yourself, out loud if you can. From now on, I protect my own heart. I gave enough. I am allowed to keep what's left. That's it. Don't text anyone. Don't announce anything. Don't write a letter to your siblings. Just say the sentence. And notice what happens in your chest when you do. For some of you, nothing will happen. You're not ready, and that's okay. For others, something will loosen, something you've been carrying since you were 8 years old. And when it loosens, you'll know. This video wasn't for everyone. It was for you. You are not cold. You are not broken. You are not a bad brother or a bad sister. You are simply someone who finally stopped paying for a piece nobody else paid for. Your parents wanted you to be free. Free doesn't always mean close. Sometimes free means honest. And honest in a family like yours may look like distance. That's not the failure of love. That's the honesty of love, finally. Before you go, I want to ask you one thing. If any of these 5 reasons hit you in the chest today, if even one of them made you stop and breathe, leave one sentence in the comments. Just one. Tell me your age. Tell me which one hit hardest. 1, the umbrella. 2, the ledger. 3, the money. 4, the different lives. 5, the contract. And if you're ready, type the sentence, "From now on, I protect my own heart." Don't write it for me. Write it for